I'm making one video for every day in July, and this is the 26th video, and it also is not July anymore. I got a little bit distracted with some more writing projects that I took on that took a little bit of my attention, but I am in fact still making one video for every day in July, which means I'm going to get to 31, and I'm going to finish that up in expeditious fashion and then keep making videos after that. So this is the 26th video, and what is the theme of this video? You should be listening to the radio. What do I mean by all that? Well, I listen to the radio all the time. I have a clock radio in my bedroom. The phone doesn't go in there. I have a clock radio for radio purposes and alarm purposes. And then I have this little guy, a little portable radio powered by 2 double D batteries. And I take it with me all over my apartment, and also if I'm going on a walk somewhere when I'm not taking my phone, which is pretty often. And why do I do this? Well, there are quite a lot of reasons, and I will start off by saying I don't think in the cosmic sense you need to explain why you listen to the radio. I do think in the particular context of our moment, it is worth explaining why someone like me, who uses a lot of technology, lives in an urban area, is relatively young, why I listen to a portable radio, because I don't think it's as common as one would think. So why do I do it? Well, first, I'll tell you a little story. I think we've all seen those images of a whole bunch of different analog or older technologic devices that are like sucked into a phone. Like it'll be a Rolodex and a dictionary and maybe an older computer and a calendar and a calculator, and then they're all sucked into the phone. And I love these images because it shows the power of human ingenuity and the potency of technologic progress. I think it's wonderful. And also, all technology comes with trade-offs and interacts with you as you are as a human in different ways. And while I love that image, it also makes me think of a different instance of it. Imagine, in many cars now, the dashboard with all the knobs and the dials is being collapsed into one screen. And again, there are advantages to this. One of the disadvantages is you tend to need to focus on the screen quite a lot, especially if you need to find a control that's not already on the screen, as opposed to the older style of dashboard where you would have knobs and dials, especially for just the basic stuff. Like maybe everything else is in a screen, but you could have heat or volume or something like that broken out as a knob. If you have knobs and dials, you can just reach over there with your hand that intuitively knows what it's doing and adjust them. And your focus is not taken off the road at all. So that's the nice thing about having something not sucked into a screen. You can utilize your physicality, the other parts of your body that know how to work intelligently within muscle memory to operate in the world, which is kind of a different computing paradigm. So having everything sucked into a screen is not without its trade-offs. And there has been discussion and discourse about this in cars, specifically because it's quite dangerous when your attention gets pulled from your main thing. I think the exact same thing is happening to people, but in their entire lives. So as the one screen is to the car, the phone is to your entire life. And I think most adults are deleteriously, horrendously addicted to their phone in a way that's actually making their life worse. And so, well, what can you do about it? Well, listen to the radio, because, it's so, you don't have to do this. It gets reception just fine, but isn't it so satisfying? And you just click, and it's on your favorite radio station because you don't move it. This is a classical radio station here in New York City. So often when I want to listen to the radio, it's just click and it's on. And there's nothing else to do. There's no digital dial here even. I just have a strip of duct tape that I put here where I marked my favorite stations. So it's kind of like using a car with your hand that knows how to do it intuitively, and it doesn't pull your attention or your focus into a screen. So number one, the radio does that. Just practically speaking, it doesn't pull your attention. It also doesn't demand your attention. There's a very limited range of things it can do. You can just move the dial, and that's it. You get what you get, which I actually think is great. Which is very different than most people's experience using Spotify on their phone. Because often if I tell people I do a lot of music listening on the radio, their first instinct is to say something like, well, you can't pick what you want to listen to. And I have two responses to that. Number one, most of the time, if people are honest, They're not getting on their phone to go listen to specific pieces of music. They're getting on their phone just to have something playing, and whatever that thing is dynamically generated by Spotify's algorithms. And a lot of people are sick of those algorithms sometimes. So in the first place, most of the time, people aren't getting on there for something specific. They just want to listen to something. And in the second place, if you do want to listen to something specific, by all means, get on your phone for that, if that's what you're doing. I just don't think that's what most people are doing most of the time. And especially if you're in your apartment or something and you just want to have something on, I think the radio is actually far superior for a couple of reasons. Number one, doesn't eat your attention. Number two, pleasantly tactile. Number three, like for the classical station I like to listen to, 105.9 here in the city, it's actually great. It's way better than any of the classical radios that Spotify generates for me. Like, it's not a competition. It's not one of those things where I'm sitting here thinking, I have to keep listening to the radio so the phone doesn't eat me and I don't become phone food. No, like the phone, Spotify has been outcompeted. 105.9 is better than the classical radios that Spotify generates. Why? Well, there's actually often a guy who's spinning literal vinyl LPs from his collection that he's gotten to know for a very long time, and then that's what you hear on the radio. And I love pretty much everything back to back that I hear on that radio station. That's not true of Spotify classical radios. Now again, it's not like you can't prune the algorithms, but like the radio just works. Spotify actually is getting outcompeted here. So just for having music on, the radio can just be better. Keep that in mind. The other thing that I'll say about the radio, besides it just generally often being best for music listening, is it presents an entirely different social reality to you if you will let it. So many people are caught in information bubbles, and algorithms of all kinds are tuning exactly what they see, and it's putting them into a sharper and sharper pigeonhole. The radio can't do that to you. And in fact, it will expose you to a whole other world. For example, if you're on Instagram or whatever, the ads are going to be hyper-tuned to you in a very creepy way. If you're listening to the radio and an ad comes on, which they don't actually come on as much as you would think, and I actually don't mind them at all when they do come on, but like, I'll give you an example of some ads. Ads for the civil service exam in New York City. You want to be a policeman, want to be a firefighter, etc. Come take the civil service exam. Here are the salaries. Here's what that's all about. Let me tell you about the MTA's signal upgrades and what that means and what's going on, and et cetera, et cetera. And a general events program for if you're on the classical station, like here are some classical performances around the city. These are great ads. Why? Because listening to, like, for example, the civil service exam ads, that's just a different world. It's actually kind of interesting. I'm not going to take that exam because I don't want those jobs. But I think, you know, a lot of people do. You're tapping into the reality of the people who do. Very interesting. The events are great because maybe I want to go to an event. And as far as like the MTA stuff that I mentioned, it is better, more robust, and more in depth than what you would probably find if you're just scrolling on the internet, and you can get it daily. So again, it's not like you're using the radio as like medicine and you secretly want to get back to your phone. If you get used to using the radio and you really use it, you just think, oh, this is just better in many ways. Partially because it's not an algorithm-packed screen. That's what makes it better. The radio can't sit here and change the ad that it's about to show you every 2 seconds based on what you just did or clicked on. So those are a lot of reasons why the radio is great. I don't know if I have too much more to say other than I really like this thing. Oh, I'm not a monster. I don't listen to the radio full blast in public. I do, in fact, use the 3.5mm jack. And I definitely have gotten some looks when I walk around McCarran Park in Brooklyn because I have this radio that I'm just carrying around around my belt and my 3.5mm headphones coming out of it. Not that common, but I love this little thing. It's like $9. It's not expensive. It's, I think, a far better way of interfacing with the world in many circumstances. I'm not saying you have to use it to the extent and in the ways that I do, but it could be worth exploring. And I bet it's a low-cost experiment. I think a lot of people should do it. just say to yourself, I'm going to give the radio a week. There's a small learning curve where you have to figure out what the stations are. But other than that, if you just sort of start having it on in the background, I bet a lot of you will find, I actually like this way better. And I'm feeling a little bit of myself come back to myself, since the radio gives you less excuse to pick up your phone. Now, whether or not you just are sitting there on your phone anyway with the radio also on, something else to figure out, but run the experiment, listen to the radio.